have to agree with Maslow when he said that a musician must make music, an artist must paint, a poet must write, if he's to be ultimately at peace with himself. What a man can be, he must be. And for me, that what has always been entrepreneurship. Steve Jobs said, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. If I'm honest with myself, I must admit that the answer has been no for far too many days. And I started out my work career as an entrepreneur, and in the future, I really long to get back to entrepreneurship. Some assume that great leaders achieve great success, and unfortunately, this is not the reality of leadership. There's a distinct difference between successfully accomplishing a mission and successfully leading others. In my opinion, someone can achieve great success and fulfill their mission while simultaneously failing as a leader. In the same way, one could fail the mission and achieve leadership greatness. In this presentation, I'd like to discuss an individual who failed at his original mission, but ultimately succeeded as a leader and accomplished far more honor and recognition in the way he led a team of men to simply survive an impossible situation. My selected leadership story begins in 1914. Though the world was rapidly changing and the door to exploring new places for the first time was closing, there were still a few opportunities for adventurers in the early 20th century to gain honor and recognition by challenging nature. Ernest Shackleton was born in Ireland in 1874. He achieved early success on a 1907 to 1909 expedition when he and three colleagues set a record for traveling the farthest south latitude of any previous explorers. They were only 97 miles from the South Pole, to which him and his partners returned to England with great acclaim, and he was even knighted by King Edward VII for the accomplishment, and he became Sir Ernest Shackleton. In 1911, another adventurer had successfully reached the South Pole, which left only one other challenge to be accomplished, and that was a complete crossing of Antarctica from one sea to the other. And it was this Imperial Transatlantic Expedition, as it came to be known, that Shackleton set his sights on to accomplish. In 1914, Shackleton secured a ship named the Endurance, and he ran an advertisement in the London paper that read, "Men wanted for hazardous journey. Small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success." Shackleton was fortunate that he was able to recruit a group of men with the skills, attitudes, and personalities that he would need when the original mission failed, and they had to undergo one of the most amazing journeys of survival in human history. On December 5th, 1914, the crew of Endurance left the whaling station on South Georgia with high hopes of a successful journey. Only 2 days later, they encountered an area of pack ice where the ocean began to freeze and close in around them. The crew pressed on through those areas of heavy pack ice until January 15th of 1915, when their ship Endurance was finally trapped by the pack ice, and they were left at the mercy of just floating along top the great block of ice. For 8 months, the crew stayed with the Endurance and used her as a shelter until she was finally crushed by the ice on October 27th of 1915. The Endurance sunk on November 21st, 1915, leaving the crew with nothing but a small open lifeboat and what supplies they could salvage from the sinking Endurance. The Endurance sunk on November 21st, 1915, leaving the crew with nothing but a small open lifeboat and what supplies I could salvage from the sinking Endurance. Shackleton successfully led his team to drag that small lifeboat across the ice for 6 months, from April 1916, when they finally reached Elephant Island, still hundreds of miles from civilization and rescue. The ship's carpenter was able to use the wood they had salvaged to build a cover over the top of the open boat so they could attempt to navigate the open ocean back to the South Georgia whaling station they had left almost 2 years earlier. With the small boat only having room for 6 crew members, the rest of the team waved goodbye to the small group who would journey on for help. Shackleton navigated the small boat over 400 miles across the open ocean and accomplished what today is still viewed as one of the most amazing feats of small boat navigation uh, in history. In May of 1916, the crew of 6 arrived on the western shore of South Georgia, and with 3 of the crew unable to continue due to injuries, Shackleton headed out on foot to climb the mountains that lay between them and the whaling station on the eastern shore. 32 miles and 36 hours later, Shackleton arrived at the whaling station, and he immediately sent a boat to pick up the 3 men on the other side of South Georgia and set to work organizing a rescue for the rest of his crew still on Elephant Island. After 3 failed attempts to save his crew, he was finally able to navigate the thick sea ice and evacuate the last 22 members of his party. If if Shackleton's it wasn't Shackleton's creativity or audacity that set him apart as a leader, but rather his fanatical personal discipline to drive forward when hope was all but gone. It was this characteristic that allowed him to escape certain death without losing a single member of his crew. In this class, I think I've learned one of the takeaways is the importance of in leadership of discipline, and that's moving forward that daily march of continuously driving um, forward personal discipline to achieve the goal or mission, even when all hope is lost. So thank you so much for participating in this presentation. I really enjoyed the class.